All right, it is 2 o'clock. We'll get it going. So it's this month's webinar is on hazard management, and something that I literally believe that where you should be starting everything from. And from the hazard register, everything comes from that kind of process. So you might have noticed, and hopefully you've noticed, this new feature I've actually put inside the system with this getting started kit. And you'll see that I actually take everyone through a journey. You're entering sites because you've got to be somewhere. And at a site, you're doing activities. Then you're entering your employees in their positions and their contractors. Then you're entering your plant equipment and chemicals. But the one after that is the big one. And the reason why it is directly after entering all your data is you're identifying all your hazards and all your risks. So at the end of the day, where do you do this? If you do watch that process there, I've actually highlighted a lot of things I'll go over in this presentation in that step, because each one of these steps plays a 5 to 8 minute video. You can watch that video and then that'll take you step by step in through how to actually enter a hazard and how to do it. So you do have that guide just here to help you follow that process. But let's just start with the philosophy of how to identify a hazard and then the risks, identify the risks and implement control measures to reduce the likelihood of that risk occurring. Basic fundamentals of safety. We'll go to the hazard register. The hazard register itself is red, orange, green. You've got the print QR code. So what you should be doing is printing your QR code for each of your sites. Make it public so a person doesn't have to enter your username and password. If it's something that all the public can see, then you wouldn't have your employees on the form. But if it's just in your in-house area, yes, you would have your employees on the form. If you select no, it will still bring up a text box, which is mandatory, where they need to enter their details. And you can have a signature box to show that the person has actually signed off on it. Print. So the system automatically creates a QR code for a hazard form. Like some of our clients, they put that around their facility, or you can say, for an example, put that in a vehicle or whatever it may be that you want to put it. Remembering that the hazard section is also linked to the plant and equipment register. So in the plant and equipment register, if I select, say, view next to this item here, you'll see, well, let me not select that one. That's a new feature we put in about locking out, but you've also got that hazard form here in the plant and equipment. So the hazard register does link to multiple registers throughout the system, which I'll go through. So let's go back to the hazard register. So when you log a hazard, so we'll go add hazard, you can relate a hazard to a site. Now, a lot of clients have said, oh, I want all my clients to actually see the hazards that I've actually put in. Well, if you want all your sites to see, if you're multiple sites and you want all your sites to see the hazard that you've logged, relate it to the global site, which will be usually your company name and highlighted in red. But you can relate it to an individual site. You can relate it to an activity. You can relate it to a machine. That's going to pick up the machine section. And you can actually enter a text box. Enter a hazard into the text box. In a future upgrade mid next year, you'll be able to set categories where you'll be able to determine what they actually enter as a hazard. What is this box here? Well, working at heights. Well, give me a description of that. Working at heights on the 5th floor of such and such, whatever it may be. So it's more detail of the actual hazard itself. So they can enter that there. It's not a mandatory field, but it's recommended that your employees actually do so. Reported date and who reported it. Now, assessment due date might be, if this is a really risky kind of process, then we're going to say it needs to be done literally straight away, so to speak. And the person responsible is usually the person's supervisor. You need to educate your users on that process there. If you actually play the video in training here, getting started, it actually does educate them how to complete this form. So instead of you trying to do it, you can actually use this as an induction into educating them how to complete this form as well as an incident form. So they can upload an image. There is an upgrade coming in where they'll be able to upload multiple images. Submit. It'll go red inside the system. Remembering you can use the helper to do every single process. So if I go assess, just type in assess and it'll bring that up, and the system will actually take you through how to actually assess the hazard. Details will be logged here. Then you've got your hazard types. Now you can actually add your own hazard types. That will create the graph in the report section of hazard types. So you determine what your hazard types are. Probably a good idea if you go to Safe Work Australia and actually see the major hazard types. There is six types of major hazards, and you can enter them like that, but depending on what business you're in. I'll just save an example for hazard. This is the preloaded matrix inside the system, strange standards. You can actually click on this and it'll put the number inside there, but let's go back to this process here. With the upgrade, when the risk manager comes into the system, probably around about February, March next year, you'll be able to create your own matrix inside the system. So if you don't like the 4x4, you'll be able to create a 5x5 or 6x6 or whatever it is, all the way up to 30x30. So you'll be able to create your own matrix with your own numbers and your own scores. So, but at the moment, you've got this matrix here. If you don't like that matrix there, you can actually come to this risk matrix and upload a graphic and select that you're uploading a graphic. If you do the risk assessment and when you have uploaded a graphic and it comes up that it'll highlight that it didn't work, just please send that graphic through the help section as a ticket, because it's just the way that you've actually saved that graphic, and then we'll upload it for you and it'll work. Remembering it won't work like this graphic where you click on the number and it'll lodge it in. Whereas with the new feature where you can build your own matrix, yes, it will have that feature. When you click on it, it'll automatically put the number there. So what is this field here? This notes field. This is, I just rated that a risk score of 1. So you would actually put here, I rated the risk score 1 because the likelihood was 1, because it's likely to happen sometime or, anytime, whatever it may be. And I also related the risk 1 on severity because if it did happen, the likelihood was going to be kill or call permanent disability. So what you're doing in that box there, you're saying I related it 2 because likely it could happen sometime, but it would cause long-term or serious illness, whatever it may be. So you're actually highlighting your likelihood score, your severity score, and why you come up with that conclusion in this box here. You can put the assessment date, assessed by person responsible for the control measure. If you've actually made a person responsible for the assessment and person responsible for the control measure, that will automatically go into that person's to-do list. And they select it, it'll take them to the next step. So this hazard process is also related to the to-do builder. And it was not the to-do builder, but to the individual's to-do list. And it'll take them to the next step, depending on what you've actually selected. So if we selected my name down here, it'll put a icon in my to-do list to say, hey, I need to develop the control measure. When I click it, it'll take me to the control page. So let's just go out here to the register. It'll go orange inside the system. Again, you can actually follow the helper if you wanted to, which is a great feature, to actually say, how do I actually enter a control measure? So how to develop a control measure. And you can go through here, and this is literally the system taking you through the hierarchy of controls. So what you're doing, you're working your way down the control measures. Can it be eliminated? If it can't, next. Can it be substituted for something safer? Well, yes, sometimes it can, but let's just say, for an example, this is a forklift. And the forklift is collision with pedestrians is the hazard. Well, the risk score would be 1 because likelihood could happen at any time. And if it did happen, likelihood it would cause either death or permanent disability. Can it be eliminated? We still need the forklift. Can it be substituted for something safer? Well, we still really need that forklift. Can we isolate the person from the hazard? Yes, we can. You select that tick box, it opens up this field here. So you would put in designated walkways and you would put in, maybe lights and all those different things. But here is isolating the person, and isolating the person is usually via designated walkways. Can you minimize it by engineering means? Yeah, as mentioned just then, you could put lights and sirens or whatever it may be to highlight that the forklift is in use. Can you use it by administration actions? Absolutely. You would train and induct your employees into the safe use of a warehouse. And the last, obviously, control measure, PPE. High visibility vest would probably be the best one there, but you can actually maybe put signage. Please don't, stay to the designated walkways. So you're building your control measures built on a certain date. Review date, depending on the type of risk, depending on when you would review this. If it's a really major risk, you would review this quite quickly just to see everything's in place, maybe a week, 2 weeks, whatever it may be, it's up to you. But you're looking at, if it's something that's a very minor risk, you might review it every 6 months. It might be even every year, but you still should review the control measures that you've implemented to make sure that they're working. If they're not working, well, they're not a control measure, they're useless. So you need to actually develop more to get it going. And out of every time that you actually do a risk assessment and you develop control measures, well, obviously you need to develop actions to implement those control measures. So you set actions. Who's going to install designated walkways? So and what due date you want to get it done by, add more. So you can add as many actions as you wish. This is not only going to go into the action register, it's going to go into this person's to-do list. And then what you should be doing is setting alerts to alert you that those actions haven't done. Remembering you can also set alerts that a hazard's been logged. So if we go hazard there, selected for an individual site. If you've got multiple sites, you'll need to set up that for every single site. And then you can select one person by holding down the control button. You can actually select multiple people. Leave this as 0, because that means that when this hazard is logged via QR code or via the system, it'll email alert the people selected here immediately. You can escalate it to another person if this hazard has not been assessed by a given date of 2 days. So the hazard register links with a lot of processes and how it's done. So it'll go into the system and then you've developed your control measures and it'll go green. There is an upgrade coming into the system mid-year after the risk manager comes in. It will not go green. So it'll actually have another column here, which will be the actions relating to that hazard. It'll have how many actions have been assigned and how many have been completed. But it will not go green until all the actions have been completed. It'll work very similar to the meeting builder, but also with a new risk manager that's coming inside the system. You can upload evidence relating to this hazard. You can also, say for an example, upload data just here if you wanted to make notes. So how do we identify a hazard and use the system to control all these processes? Again, watch that helper, but you could, if you wanted to, in that step-by-step helper that's just been built inside the system. If you watch this introduction to the setup process, even though you might have had the system for some time, it's still a good idea if you go through this process here, because literally I'm taking you through a journey here. You've entered all your data, you're identifying your hazards and risks. From that, then you can actually identify emergency procedures relating to those processes, relating to your emergency equipment, and responsibilities. So really, this is the first step in actually creating your entire system after all your data has been entered. Then you're looking at, once you've done that, you're developing policies and procedures and checklists, and especially inductions to educate your employees on what to be doing and to reduce the likelihood of an incident recurring or occurring. So where do you identify them first? As I mentioned, come here, select helpful resources, audit setup tool. Download this document. So this will help you go through step by step through the process. But if we actually come to the hazard process, I actually give you some good kind of questions where you can actually identify and enter those in there. So if you come in here, as I'm saying, this is the most important register in your system, because really the whole concept of providing a safe workplace revolves around this step. So how do you do this? How do you identify hazards? Well, start looking at your sites and locations that you've entered inside your system, the activities that you've entered, the employees and contractors, depending on what kind of activities they're doing, what kind of people they are. So the plant and equipment items you've entered and the chemicals. If you look at those kind of 6 areas, you really should be able to identify the majority or nearly all the hazards and risks relating to your company. So if you come down here, there's even a little bit of an audit built for you, so you can actually go through and try to identify that. But when it comes down to it, and then actually I'll take you through the next step in developing the emergency procedures relating to the hazards you've just identified, and obviously the emergency equipment needed and the responsibilities. So use that tool. It's in your help section, but if you follow the step-by-step helper, that'll help you there. So your hazards are going to be coming from the sites that you've actually entered inside your system. And when you're at that site, you're going to be doing certain activities. So have a look at, if you've already uploaded safe work method statements and all these different processes, all those hazards are already going to be there. So you'll find that depending on where you got your safe work method from, it usually will have a control measure on there. But it's up to you to actually implement and make sure that the control measure is done. So, and then you're looking at on your safety data sheet, the same thing for chemicals. It will actually have the risks and hazards relating to that chemical, suggested kind of plans, suggested PPE, handling procedures. So again, it's you educating your employees that it's there. So when it comes down to it, it's all there for you. Your safe work method statements, your safety data sheet, and your safe operating procedures, or every machine that you get will be given a user manual. Even if you went out and bought the vacuum cleaner at Kmart, when you open up that box, it will have a user manual on the safe use of that item. You open it up, it'll actually tell you all the safety concerns of that there. So obviously you're going to have other machines. You're not going to have like a little portable vacuum cleaner from Kmart. You might have a forklift, or you might have other items. They will actually have a user manual that you can actually use to develop all your processes in. It's all in those manuals. So all these documents that you already have are already there. So it's up to you just to get that out, put it into the hazard section. So what do you do after that? As mentioned in the helper, you might even, after this kind of presentation, start from the hazard section in that step-by-step guide, and then follow the next kind of 4 or 5 steps to identify, and then develop your emergency procedures, then develop your emergency equipment needed and your responsibilities, because all these 3 characters, they all interlink to create one complete process in the emergency procedure section. And then after that, well, obviously you're going to be developing policies that you might be lacking after you actually go through that process. So you develop your policies inside that there, and then you're going to develop your procedures, but you're going to use the checklist builder to ensure that they're actually implementing the safe work procedures when they're using these items here. And that was the philosophy around actually making sure that these fields you could relate to the checklist feature to an activity, a machine, a hazard, a chemical. That's why that's like that there. So when you're actually doing it, if you're doing an activity inside the system there, yes, they can follow the safe work method statement, but you would build a checklist relating to that safe work method statement to say, hey, have you read the safe work method statement? Yes. Are you wearing the appropriate PPE? Are you doing this? It's all there like that. With the chemicals, have you read the safety data sheet? Are you wearing the appropriate PPE? All the kind of things that you need to do. So what that checklist builder is doing is reinforcing your procedures and processes there. Of course, you should be using, again, the induction builder to actually do that. Now, there's been a bit of an upgrade to the induction builder, not just in the matrix, but also in this section here. So, it's a great feature. So if I come down here and if I select view, it's got the QR code. Now with this QR code, if you scan that QR code, it's actually going to bring up this document. Instead of you not being able to select that, they'll be able to do this induction via that QR code and select their name. So technically, if you've got high risk items, build an induction relating to those high risk items and the hazards that you've identified and the risks. And then create a QR code, put it on the machine or put it on the chemical or whatever it may be that you want to do. So they can go up and not only do an induction at the start, but also you could actually just imagine if you had a machine. We've got one client and they've got a machine that literally bends all this metal. And if you got your arm in there, it would chop your arm off. Having a QR code now on that machine where the person can come up, have a sign on the machine, you must scan this QR code before use of this machine. They scan the QR code, it brings up an induction on how to undertake the pre-start checklist and also prepare themselves. Have you make sure you check the guards, make sure you do this, make sure your hair's tied up, make sure you're wearing this. So it's taking them through in that induction section. And then they can actually do the pre-start check after that as per your little video that you've actually done with your supervisor. So that means that you've identified the hazards and risks relating to those items. You've actually assessed it, and then you've developed a control measure. And the control measure is not only doing all these things, but having a QR code literally on the machine telling them what to do. That's pretty powerful. So if something did happen and someone said, well, how did you try to do this? Well, what more can I do? I've not only I've identified the hazards, I've implemented control measures, I've developed my pre-start checklist, I've inducted the people into it, and I've also developed a pre-start induction what they want to actually make sure that that's safe. I know that might sound a lot of work, but once it's done, it's there. So it's and obviously you would start at the higher risk hazards first and then work your way down. So if you do have a forklift or machinery that is likely to cause serious injury and harm, you would start there first. If I had one client that a long time ago, basically they had a warehouse, forklift was running around everywhere, and when I did a site inspection, their kind of major process of what a hazard was well, the guys could burn themselves making a cup of coffee. Well, you've got a forklift driving around in your factory with no designated walkways, no bollards, and it's just everywhere. So that likelihood of the highest risk is obviously your forklift. So you need to look at it like, open eyes and identify exactly what your high risks are first. Now, you might think, oh, I've already implemented control measures and so forth. If you have, I would highly recommend that you would actually enter them inside the system here to show a history that you've actually done that. Because if you're going to get audited of some sort, they're going to come to this register and see that you've actually identified, assessed, and controlled hazards in your workplace. So it's a good idea that you do this, because this is what it's all about. A lot of people say, yeah, I've done that. I've done this. But the thing is, that's just all hearsay. It has to be actually done by you actually recording all this kind of information. And I'll just put everyone on mute. So so this is a great way for you to actually enter all your hazards inside the system and set actions, especially if you're in a high risk kind of area, to show that you got things in place. Well, I hope that made a little bit of sense. I have recorded that process there, but I do highly recommend that you actually come down to this new Getting Started guide and start from step 8. You might kind of learn a little bit more about your system and how it works. You might even, say, for an example, want to go through those videos of each, those kind of steps. It does play in between a 3 and 8 minute video, depending on what step it is. And then we'll take you step by step through how to use the system, which obviously, if you've been a client for a while, you already know. So you might just get a pep up on, watching all those videos first. But I highly recommend you watch that one there and follow that step. If you do have any questions or you need any more answers, please do not hesitate to send an email, or you can do it via your ticket system and say, hey, I've got this. What do you think we should do? So more than happy to help you there. And Julianne and Marie are here to help you as well. So as well as Claire overseas. So there's lots of new features coming into the system. Just a little bit of update. We will be closing down at Christmas between the 23rd of December and the 3rd of January. There still will be ticket support. It just won't be any kind of phone support and day-to-day kind of activities that we normally do, but there still definitely will be ticket support, and the system obviously will be running 24/7 all the way through. So we will be having, I think there's another webinar that Julianne's set before the end of the year, but if not, if you don't get into that one, I hope Christmas is not too far away. It's just over a month away, and hope you have a good Christmas and Happy New Year. But we have got some major features coming into the system in the first quarter of next year, including the corporate risk module should be available. We're updating the to-do builder to just get it working, even better than it is now. We've got some major upgrades to the incident section and to the report section, and we're actually adding some features to the checklist feature, where you'll be able to reach quality by using this checklist feature. It's going to be a very, very good feature. So thank you for your time. Usually we go this anything between 25 and 30 minutes. So I've been blubbering on now for 27 minutes non-stop. So thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed that, and looking forward to you using the system even more than you may be using it now. Thanks very much.